For many years, there's been an endless discussion as to the origin of evil. Theologians have told us that God is love and that God is omnipresent. Well, if this is true, there's no place where God is not. Where then is evil, Satan, and hell? Well, let us see. God is spirit. Spirit is the creative principle of the universe. Man is made in the image and the likeness of God. So man, therefore, is a spiritual being. When the creative power of thought is manifested for the benefit of humanity, we call the result good. When the creative power of thought is manifested in a destructive or evil manner, we call the result evil. Thought necessarily precedes and predetermines action. Action precedes and predetermines condition. Part 20 will throw more light upon this important subject. So guys, welcome today to the Master Key System. This is Chapter 20, Part 20, and we're closing in on our final few chapters. And I hope that you've enjoyed chapters 1 through 19. If you haven't listened to those lectures, please go back and do so, and go ahead and subscribe to our channel so you'll get the next few that are remaining as well. Today, we're going to continue to dig deeper into this idea of good versus evil, in particular, how we have come to those particular thought patterns and what they mean, and what it means for you in terms of empowerment for your daily lives, to understand that there really is no source of evil, only an absence of what we consider to be positive energy. So let's get into it. All great things come through recognition. The scepter of power is consciousness, and thought is its messenger. This messenger is constantly molding the realities of the invisible world into the conditions and environments of your objective world. Thinking is the true business of life. Power is the result. You are at all times dealing with the magical power of thought and consciousness. What results can you expect so long as you remain oblivious to the power which has been placed within your control? The secret of power is a perfect understanding of the principles, forces, methods, and combinations of mind, and a perfect understanding of our relationship to the universal mind. It is well to remember that this principle is unchangeable. If this were not so, it would not be reliable. All principles are changeless. This stability in your opportunity. You are its active attribute. The channel for its activity, the universal, can act only through the individual. When you begin to perceive that the essence of the universal is within you, you begin to do things. You begin to feel your power. It is the fuel which fires the imagination, which lights the torch of inspiration, which gives vitality to thought, which enables you to connect with all the invisible forces of the universe. It is this power which will enable you to plan fearlessly and to execute masterfully. So here's the thing. So many of us later in life begin to question, ask the true questions, how and why, and these sorts of things. Why do I, subscribe to this particular belief system, or why do I live in this region? Or, we begin to exert our own individuality, understanding that for most of our lives, we've simply been programmed. We've simply been programmed. And the reason I bring that up is because part of that programming, we're never really told we're never really told who we are. So I'll use myself as an example, because I did come up in, religious sector in Christianity. And for the most part, in Christianity, just like with any other religion, there's a doctrine. It's not telling you who you are, it's telling you what to do. Those are two very different things. The sage Krishnamurti would say it this way, that religion is superficial and that spirit is fundamental. Meaning, if you really want substantial footing, you have to have the fundamental. And the fundamental is, who am I? This goes back to dispelling and overcoming fear, which is our prior lecture in 19. This goes to what Hanel is talking about today in terms of these sources of evil that we're always told about in church. Well, there's not a source of evil. There's a lack of goodness and good energy, but there's not a source, just like there's not a source of darkness. But if you don't know that, then you cannot operate in the power of that knowledge. You cannot operate in the power of that knowledge. And here it's important because just imagine if from the age of infancy we're told that we are the universe, that we are a part of God, that we are a part of that whole, that we have within us that infinite, ultimate, universal power. And that we're not these small egos that we so much of our lives believe ourselves to be. We're not our ego. We're much more than that. Ego is a false identifier. It's not who you really are. You're not the vice president of anything. You're not, whatever your name is and these sorts of things. You are made in the image and the likeness of all there is. So I only bring that up because it's important to understand as we read through this chapter and understand some of these terms and revisit these terms. It's important to uncover where it is that we got this understanding. Where is it that we receive the understanding of evil? Where did these things come from? Well, that's important because we don't want to repeat that same behavior with our kids or with anyone else. We want to uncover it, understand from a principle standpoint, and of course, Hanel is all about scientific, laws and principles that are, foundational principles that we can stand on and that we can build methods and methodologies on that can be repeated and show proven results, not the mystical. So that's the reason I brought it up. Maybe you're like me and you were told certain things when you were young, you didn't really question them, and you simply have used those thoughts and those ideas and you built upon them, within your life. And it's only until recently, well, for me, it's been the last 10 to 12 years that I've begun to kind of turn those stones over and say, why do I believe this? Why do I go to church here? Or what's my real feelings about sexuality or whatever the case may be? Whatever that challenging thought has always been, whatever that taboo thing is, turn that rock over and just see, where did you get that idea from? Who told you that? And is there better information out there based on the larger I, not the small me, the ego? So let's move on. Perception will come only in the silence. This seems to be the condition required for all great purposes. You are a visualizing entity. You are a visualizing entity. Imagination is your workshop. It is here that your ideal is to be visualized. And each time I see visualization and imagination, of course, Neville Goddard comes to mind. And if you're not familiar with Neville, certainly there's a link in our descriptions. I would suggest that you go and just listen to some of his teachings. It is really transforming. It is really transforming. I don't want to get off because I'll go into a tangent because I really love Neville's teachings. And we're going to do some of his lectures after we finish Charles Hanel, the Master Key System. But for now, just go to the description, click on the links that we have there for Neville, and just listen to what he has to say about who and what the human imagination is. So let's move on. We can fail to recognize this world within and so exclude it from our consciousness, but it will still be the basic fact of all existence. When we learn to recognize it not only in ourselves, but in all persons, events, things, and circumstances, we shall have found the kingdom of heaven, which we are told is within us. Within us. To become inspired means to get out of the beaten path, out of the rut, because extraordinary results require extraordinary means. When we come into recognition of the unity of all things and that the source of all power is within, we tap the source of inspiration. Inspiration is the art of imbibing, the art of self-realization, the art of adjusting the individual mind to that of the universal mind, the art of attaching the proper mechanism to the source of all power, the art of differentiating the formless into form, the art of becoming a channel for the flow of infinite wisdom, the art of visualizing perfection, the art of realizing the omnipresence and the omnipotence. This is such a profound verse or portion of the lecture here today for me, because I often imagine now midlife, what my life would be if I had continued to hold on to my childhood imaginations. Because this really is what Hanel is saying. When you tap in and come conscious of the power within, meaning you understand that you are part of the universal mind, then you realize that everything is available to you. There's nothing that would be considered impossible. That wouldn't be in your vocabulary. So your imagination would run wild. You ever see kids play, if you have kids, or if you're a teacher, if you just simply have witnessed kids on the playground? I mean, they can go from one scenario to the next in terms of, cowboys and Indians to, Star Trek or, different space scenarios, because their minds are just full of wonder and full of imaginations. They can change characters. They can be, become a dog, or they can be a sheriff. It doesn't really matter because everything is open to them. And just imagine if you we have held on to that type of imagination our whole lives. But we know what happens is, we're kind of unleashed into what our external environment considers reality, be it by our parents, by our school teachers, by our ministers, just by, our environment. Be realistic and, stop playing and, these sorts of things. Well, Hanel is saying here, inspiration comes from this natural ability to just be self-realized, just to sit and wonder. So Hanel is saying inspiration is the art of imbibing, the art of self-realization. And imagine if you really do believe that nothing's impossible. How exciting is it to wake up every day and to consider that everything in front of me is achievable? How exciting and freeing would it be to wake up every day and think, I have this wonderful thought. I'm going to build this thing, whether it's a company or a desk or a relationship. It doesn't matter, because in your innermost, where you have conceived the source of power, you know that it's possible. And you're not even considering, this is the best part, you're not even considering failure. You don't even consider it not working. When kids are playing on the playground, they never consider terrible scenarios. Everything is fun, everything is jubilant, everything is, a step better than the last. And there seems to be no real limitation to their imagination. I have kids, I know. They can go from good to great to better and keep going up the scale. And I also know that one of the reasons why maybe if they become limited, it was because of dealings with older people, such as me and their mom. We've limited, not in a malicious way, but just through being conditioned ourselves through environment. Sometimes, we like, hey, that's not really realistic. The truth of the matter is, we should all be imbibing and living deeply in our imaginations, and knowing that whatever it is that we want from this life, we can have. Because that really was the intent. We spend so much time thinking about things that we don't want. And that wasn't the intent. Think of, like Abraham says, think of wanted, not unwanted. Think of wanted, not unwanted. An understanding of these facts, first intellectually and then emotionally, will enable us to drink deeply from the ocean of infinite power. An intellectual understanding will be of no assistance. The emotions must be brought into action. Thought without feeling is cold. The required combination is thought and feeling. Now, you'll remember when we first started talking about, the master key system, and I was instructing you how to go into the silence, how to begin to concentrate, use your imagination, begin to visualize the desired result that you want, and then begin to create these idealizations and really create it with great detail. Okay, that was the first part, because you got to have the thought. But Hanel is saying here, without the emotion piece, that's going to be kind of cold. That's why I would tell you, the real essence of what moves us forward is the impregnation of your thoughts with the emotion. And again, I'll refer you back to Neville. Neville Goddard would always say, live in the end. What would it feel like if you had already possessed your particular achievement? You already have it. You already have the relationship. You already have the car, the home, the security, financial security, the lifestyle you want, whatever it is that you desire. What would you feel like? What would you feel like? Why is the feeling so important? Well, the universe correlates with your feelings because your energy, universe is energy, your energy. So when you are feeling a certain way, you're vibrating. We use terms like I feel good, I feel bad, I feel happy, I feel sad, but really we're just describing how we're vibrating. So the feeling is really the key. And that's what really can make a huge, huge difference. So the intellectual piece, the imagination is great, but impregnated with the emotional piece. How does it feel? How does it feel that you've already accomplished your goal? And you're going to begin to draw that goal to you through that feeling. Now, we can live more abundantly every time we breathe if we consciously breathe with that intention. The if is a very important condition in this case, as the intention governs the attention. And without attention, you can secure only the results which everyone else secures. And that is simply a supply equal to the demand. So if you don't make a grand request for a demand, then you're going to get just what everybody else gets. In order to secure the larger supply, your demand must be increased. And as you consciously increase the demand, the supply will follow. You will find yourself coming into a larger and larger supply of life, energy, and vitality. Now, we are told that in Him we live and move and have our being. And we are also told that He is a spirit. And again, that He is love. And so that every time we breathe this life, love, and spirit. This is pranic energy, or pranic ether. We could not exist a moment without it. It is the cosmic energy. It is the life of the solar plexus. The life of the solar plexus. Every time we breathe, we fill our lungs with the air and at the same time vitalize our body with this pranic ether, which is life itself, so that we have the opportunity of making a conscious connection with all life, in intelligence and all substance. A knowledge of your relation and oneness with this principle that governs the universe and the simple method whereby you can consciously identify yourself with it gives you a scientific understanding of a law whereby you may be free. You may free yourself from disease. You may free yourself from lack, or you may free yourself from limitation of any kind. In fact, it enables you to breathe the breath of life into your own nostrils. Now that's a mouthful. There's a lot there to chew on. We'll just take it a little piece at a time. Now, what Hanel is saying here is if it is true, so let's go back to the beginning. If it is true that in him we live and move and have our being in him. This is obviously a scriptural reference. And if he is spirit, which we believe he is, and love, of course, that is also something we believe as well, then each time we breathe, well, just think of it like this: we exist within him. So as we're breathing and moving and doing our day-to-day functions, we're in this pranic ether, what Hanel calls this pranic energy, and this cosmic energy, and it is giving us vitality and giving us life. Okay, so that's number one. Each time we fill our lungs with air, we are allowing this great and awesome existence, this substance, to flow in and out of this vessel. And we're empowering ourselves. We're vitalizing our body through this pranic energy. It's life. Because without it, there wouldn't be life. Okay, so that's number one. And number two is to have a knowledge of all this. The knowledge of your relation and oneness with this principle. Hanel says it governs the universe and the simple method whereby you can consciously identify yourself. You know consciously that you are a part of the whole. And you know that each time you breathe in and breathe out, you are living and moving and having your being within him. There's no such thing as empty space. See, if we're unlearned or ignorant are simply not knowledgeable about things, then we may think from this wall to that wall, there's nothing. There's empty space. Well, there's no empty space. Science has proven this over and over again. You cannot sense it with your five senses. That's why you need the sixth sense. Hanel is saying here, you become conscious of the fact that there's no empty space, that pranic energy exists, that ether exists, and you are flowing in it all the time. Think about it like this. Imagine if you were in a pool, a huge pool of water, and in your neighborhood, you have a pool, for example, or at your home, you have a pool. And from one end to the other, now you're underneath the water, and all you can see really is water. So it may appear there's nothing really there because it's clear. So you can see from one wall, one side of the pool to the next. Well, between those two areas, it's completely full of some substance. Well, we call it water. Now you're in your room, or you're in your car, or you're in your office. Think of the ether like the water. It's still filling up all this space. You simply cannot see it. And that's important because it gives you a scientific understanding of a law whereby you may free yourself from disease, from lack, from limitation of any kind. In fact, it enables you to breathe the breath of life into your own nostrils. So basically, if you come into this understanding that you're tied into all there is, you can dispel sickness, you can dispel fear, you can dispel these notions of evil and hell and all these other things, and know that you're empowered, know that you are part of all there is. You can breathe the breath of life into your own nostrils. Now, this breath of life is a superconscious reality. It is the essence of the I am. It is pure being or universal substance, and our conscious unity with it enables us to localize it and thus exercise the powers of this creative energy. We understand we're part of it, and then we say, okay, now because I'm part of it, now I can do these things because I have this higher consciousness, this higher level of understanding. We must be before we can do, and we can do only to the extent to which we are. And so what we do will necessarily coincide with what we are. And what we are depends upon, you guessed it, what we think. So knowledge cannot apply itself. And the way to overcome fear is through the consciousness of your own power. Hanel is saying here, once you become conscious of all that you are and who you're connected to, this universal substance, you're connected to this universal substance, then that should give you awareness of your own power. Now, having been aware now of this power, what can happen as a result? Well, you can become something greater. You don't have to be the small me. You can be the large I. We must be before we can do. And we can only do according to which we are. And that which we are depends upon who we think you are. James Allen, As a Man Thinketh, is a great book to read. As a Man Thinketh is one of the transforming messages for me when my paradigm shifted. I read that book along with this book, The Master Key System, and it really adjusted the way that I thought about myself. Because the big question is, who do you think you are? A man is who he thinks he is. And so a man or woman is who he or she thinks they are. And so it's important that you understand who you are so you can think from that standpoint. And these smaller, more individual things won't bother you because you will be above that thinking. Your consciousness will have risen. You may use thought constructively or destructively, but the immutable law will not allow you to plant a thought of one kind and reap the fruit of another. So for your exercise this week, go into the silence and concentrate on the fact that in Him we live and move and have our being. Concentrate on the fact that it is literally and scientifically exact. That you are because He is. And that if He is omnipresent, He must be in you. That if He is all in all, you must be in Him. That He is spirit and you are made in His image and likeness, and that the only difference between His spirit and your spirit is one of degree. That a part must be the same in kind and quality as the whole. When you can realize this clearly, you will have found the secret of the creative power of thought. You will have found the origin of both good and evil. You will have found the secret of the wonderful power of concentration. As well, you will have found the key to the solution of every problem, whether physical, financial, or environmental. This one paragraph almost summarizes the entire book. Understanding this almost summarizes the entire book, because it is true. He is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. And it is true. We are tied in to that universal mind, to that universal substance. And because we have a knowledge of that, we can now perceive our lives differently. We do not have to succumb to fear. We do not have to succumb to limited situations. We can overcome using this thought process. Now, in summary, upon what condition does your power depend? Upon the recognition and use. Again, I'll say, knowledge does not apply itself. I can tell you one thing, but if you don't apply it, then it's not going to give you any benefit. Number 2, what is the recognition? Consciousness. How do we become conscious of power? We do so by thinking. God, it's been my pleasure bringing this to you this week. I hope this has been empowering, impactful, and effective for you. Please apply these principles, use the exercise time, and go into the silence and really concentrate on who it is that you are. Check us out here in the descriptions, because we've got some free giveaways for you. And as always, if you haven't subscribed, please do so now, and we will see you next time. Thanks.